Hey everyone, Gonzalez with Software Agents here. It's September 24th at my time of recording this, and right now I'd like to give some thoughts regarding something that was announced during the September 23rd Nintendo Direct. That was a very eventful Direct. A lot to talk about, but I just want to focus on one thing today, and that is the fact that Nintendo 64 games were announced to appear on the Nintendo Switch. This will be done via the Nintendo Switch Online service, which I've made a few videos about in the past. And I try to keep on top of those updates, because, I love talking about retro games and showing people ways to play them. Nintendo 64 games have been missing in a current form on Nintendo platforms for quite a few years now. The last time we've had official emulations was on the Wii U. And the Wii U has, for the most part, fallen by the wayside since the Switch replaced it. This had been rumored for a while, and it just seemed inevitable that it would happen. So of the games that have been announced, it looks like for the launch of this service, at least in North America, we'll have Super Mario 64, Mario Kart 64, Star Fox 64, Yoshi's Story, Ocarina of Time, Operation WinBack, Mario Tennis, Dr. Mario 64, and Sin and Punishment, Successor of the Earth. It's a very strong lineup, and I wouldn't say there's a bad game in the bunch, although I'm not the biggest fan of Yoshi's Story. I think it's a nice mix of big name titles and a few little oddities. I wouldn't call Dr. Mario obscure, but we haven't seen Dr. Mario 64 released, I don't think, since 2001. I haven't played that game in 20 years. So that'll be fun to re-experience. Sin and Punishment had previously been released on the Wii and Wii U Virtual Console services. This is a way that most US players have had an opportunity to play it for the first time, and it's good for this game to have another release. I'd say this is a top 10 Nintendo 64 game. The most curious inclusion of this lineup is Operation WinBack. WinBack? This is a game that was never popular. I've heard about it because a few people have told me that they consider this to be a hidden gem on the Nintendo 64. This is a third-person shooter by Koei, before the Koei Tecmo merger. And I'm all for inclusions like this, because some of the other games coming up, like F-Zero X, Majora's Mask, Mario Golf, people know them. It's good to see them out there again, but I do like some of the more under-the-radar stuff getting a little bit of exposure. One thing that's a little bit of a bummer is that it looks like Japan is getting Custom Robo and Custom Robo V2. It looks like they're still going to be Japan-only games. It doesn't look like there's any plans to officially release them outside of Japan, and I just think it's a shame because I've always been curious about these games, but in the meantime, we'll just have to stick with the GameCube one. Some of these games I own in their original formats, so when the service goes live, I'll be doing a demonstration of them, similar to what I've done with some of the previous Nintendo Switch Online games. I'm concerned about the controls and stability. I want to make sure that they all function properly. Speaking of controls, they're also releasing a new Nintendo 64 controller to go with this, and I just don't understand the point of it. The Nintendo 64 controller, it's not good, folks. It confused me as a kid with its weird spaceship design, and I don't know, I would stay away from this. Maybe it'll be good for some people to try to understand how these games were played, but it's a really bizarre controller. I just hope at the very least the sticks are better. Overall, you have a nice mix of genres, some single-player games, and some fun multiplayer games as well. They announced that later they'll add Majora's Mask, F-Zero X, Mario Golf, Pokemon Snap, Kirby 64, Paper Mario, and Banjo-Kazooie to the service. Most of these have been re-released in the past. The most curious inclusion is Banjo, as the rights to Banjo are owned by Microsoft. So it's nice to see that Nintendo and Microsoft are playing nice and finding a way to share the profits. Although I don't think you can beat the rare replay version of Banjo. Besides Nintendo 64, they'll also be adding Sega Genesis games to the service. Castlevania Bloodlines, Contra Hardcore, Dr. Robotnick's Mean Bean Machine, Ecco The Dolphin, Golden Axe, Gunstar Heroes, Musha, Phantasy Star IV, Ristar, Shining Force, Shinobi III, Sonic the Hedgehog 2, Streets of Rage 2, and Strider Hear You. I love me some Sega Genesis games, but I find this a little bit underwhelming, mostly because Sega Genesis games, they get re-released with some degree of frequency, so this really isn't super special to me. More to the point, these have been all released fairly recently. All these should look familiar if you have a Sega Genesis Mini, but for some reason, if you haven't experienced them before, it's nice to have another option, I guess. Anyway, that's all I have to say for now. Stay tuned for more Software Agents videos and streams, and let us know below, which of these games are you excited to try again? What Nintendo 64 or Sega Genesis games would you like to see on the service? I love reading your responses, so please let us know below. And for related content, be sure to check out over here.